Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Artsbeat TV and Radio here on Westfield Community Programming Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB. I'm your host, Mark Auerbach. We are in Studio 120. Our first guest for this half hour of Artsbeat is Bob Cilman, who is the creator-director of the Young at Heart Chorus. Now, many of you have heard about the Young at Heart Chorus, and actually this is the first time that we've had a chance to chat with Bob about it. I know we're a week or two late from the release of your new CD, and quite the launch party for that. But Bob, welcome to Artsbeat.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So it's been a kind of a strange time with the pandemic and you guys doing performances and rehearsals through Zoom, but you were able to put out a new CD of music, and you had such a great array of people helping you launch that. I was like totally amazed at the guest list.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing to us as well, but people really wanted to help us out, and the show's really fun to watch. I mean, if people want to watch it, you can just go on our website at youngatheartchorus.com, and it's right there. And it just kind of shows you what you can do, even if you're stuck in your living rooms. We've been making a lot of music. Yeah.
Was it difficult for your singers to adjust not only to singing on Zoom or remotely, but the technology? How did you get everybody set up to do this?
I would say that's the understatement of the month. It was really hard, and we have a great technician. What happened with us is, we stopped rehearsing on March 12th. We had to cancel rehearsal. And then by March 19th, we put together a teleconference phone call where we just got everybody on their telephones, and it was the most chaotic thing you can imagine. And but it was emotional too, to be able to be with people and realize, you know what, we can make something happen. And then over that weekend, we spent the whole weekend getting everybody to even look at their computers. So many people had computers that said, "Oh, I have a computer, but I've never even bothered to look at it." The average age of Young at Heart is 85. And so it took a lot of doing. But now we have everybody up, and they're even making recordings on cell phones. And, people can really see the results of the work in the show that we put together on October 3rd.
I know that one of the important things about Young at Heart Chorus is the fact that it offers your senior singers a chance to be a part of a community. And so many seniors are isolated in their lives, but these men and women come together, they rehearse and they perform. I would assume that this was a lifeline for many of them during the pandemic, and the ongoing pandemic, is just the opportunity to be community, even though it's electronic as opposed to FaceTime.
Yeah, I think everybody feels a real closeness to one another, even though it's through the computer. I mean, we really all are there. The attendance is amazing. Some people have to drive 40 miles to a rehearsal, and so this makes it a little bit easier on that end. And, and we're asking a lot of people, a lot more than we normally do, where they're making recordings outside of rehearsal time. People are putting much more time into it than they ever have. And, it's not what we want for our future, but we realize it's going to be a while. I mean, we're going to be the last group to get back together again, with the average age as it is, and also singing being such a spreading kind of event. So, we have kind of embraced this in the only way we can. And I'm just so excited that, we're making the music that we're making this way. It's really fun.
How did Young at Heart come to be?
Well, back in 1982, I had a job as a director of a meal site in Northampton at the Walter Salvo House, and there wasn't much for me to do on the job. I mean, and I was kind of like the maitre d', And so somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, why don't you get a group of people together to sing?" And I can play the piano, she said, and I did that, and it was kind of interesting. I actually found somebody to direct it, but the director didn't quite connect with the members of the chorus. She had them doing sort of simple songs that they didn't really like singing. And I remember she bailed on the day of our first little concert that we had in Southampton at a church. And so I had to stand in and direct, and we really sounded horribly, and I couldn't get them to sing much. But we had this one woman, Anna Main, who told jokes, and she was like 88 at the time. And she got up and did about 20 minutes of stand-up, and just the place went wild. And so I kind of realized that Young at Heart had to be a little bit different than just a little choral thing. And then we connected to a lot of different organizations in Northampton for the next 15 years. You know, we did these great collaborations with break dancers and Cambodian performers. The Gay Men's Chorus, we did a really fun show called Flaming Saddles. And then in '97, we got invited to perform in Holland, and with No Theater, a local group, and things just kept on going, and we toured a lot. You know, between '97 and 2014, we did 2 international tours a year, and once the movie came out in 2008, we were touring all over this country. So.
Are there, subsequently to this, are there other Young at Heart choruses or Young at Heart chorus types in other parts of the country, or are you pretty much the only game?
You know, there are people who call themselves Young at Heart, and it gets confusing for some people. I don't think there's any group that does quite what we do, but we did perform in New Zealand, and when we performed in New Zealand, we couldn't take everybody, so we added 5 New Zealanders to the chorus when we performed there. And when we left, they started their own chorus. So there's a Young at Heart New Zealand. And I just yesterday got an email from somebody in Japan who said that there's a Young at Heart based on us in Japan that wants to connect with us over Zoom. So, you know, there's bits and pieces of it.
Who picks the music that the chorus learns? Is that something that you do, or do they come to you with ideas?
More, it comes from me, but not just me. I mean, all kinds of people make suggestions for us. It's not necessarily the chorus members. It's people who are fans. It's people who are in the band. It's, you know, there's a lot of ways in which we get ideas of what we should do. It's certainly not just me. It doesn't come that much from the chorus members, because we're talking about music that they're not really that familiar with.
I was going to say, I mean, I don't know if your median age of your singer is 85. I'm not sure how much some of them would be aware of the particular music that you perform, because unless they're in a household where they're listening to that kind of music.
Yeah, in a household where they didn't force their kids to turn off the music and actually listen to some of it. But we, you know, it's more interesting that they don't know the music, because when they begin to work on it and sing it, and we don't have them listen to the original very much, just maybe 1 or 2 times, they come up with their own sort of interpretations of it, which are quite lovely. And so I think that's sort of the trick. You know, if I did a group and everybody was singing Sinatra songs, you know, they'd be going right for the way Frank does it and the way they've always known it and learned it, you know. So there's something beautiful about them, and it's also really good for the brain that they have to learn new lyrics, they have to learn new melodies. That's really a useful thing to do when you're older.
When you take them out on tour, how many singers go out? Like when you went to Holland, or 25,
27.
Now, I've done theater tours before where you've had a group going out there and you can pack in a really tight schedule where you fly into city A and you get there at 5 o'clock, you do a sound check, and then you do your performance at 8, crash, and then the next day go off to the next town. I would assume with your median age group being what it is, that planning a tour with these people involves a lot of R&R time and downtime and things like that.
Well, on our last tour, it's absolutely true, and we never get off the plane and perform. It just doesn't happen. We usually give ourselves 2 days to recover before we start performing. And when we went to Japan and New Zealand, we gave ourselves like 3 or 4 days. It's a grueling trip. Those trips. I mean, the last tour we did to Holland in 2018, 3 of our people were in the hospital the day after we arrived. So it was tricky, but they all wound up being on stage by at least the second show.
Are there any singers going back over the years or any of the participants that have really struck a chord with you in terms of their lives being changed by being part of Young at Heart?
Oh my God. I mean, it's so many. I mean, I think we tried to count how many people have been in Young at Heart. I think it's close to 150 or 175. And, everybody, I think, has had their life changed by being in it, including me. I mean, it's just this really sort of wonderful ride that it's been on for 38 years. And, at every step of the way, it changes. I mean, this new curveball we got with the pandemic, it's like once we stopped mourning, we organized, and we came up with this show that was seen by so many more people than would normally come see a concert in Northampton, and so it's I think we sort of the answer to your question is yes. I think almost everybody has had their life significantly changed by being in the group.
The way I found out about Young at Heart, and I've got to admit that I've been a fan for a long time and all of that, but in my neighborhood in Longmeadow was this recent widower at the time, and his daughter had interned for one of the newspapers I wrote for, so he sort of knew who I was. And he was a guy that was like totally down in the dumps and very negative, and whatever happiness he had had in his life sort of was gone. And I want to think that he was maybe in his late 60s, early 70s at the time. And I ran into him about 10 years later, and he had been a part of Young at Heart Chorus, and it had totally changed his world. He was happy, he was upbeat and smiling. I don't know even if he's still alive today, but I remember him telling me about how just it wasn't the singing that he enjoyed as much as having new friends that he could relate to every day and look forward to being with, because most of his friends and his associates that he was around were also recently widowed and facing, downsizing of their homes. Their kids had flown the coop and gone their own way. And for him, it was an entirely new life. So I would assume for other people that are involved at Young at Heart, it gives them something much more than they would have if they weren't singing and convening and all of that.
I think you're talking about Stan.
Stan, I believe his last name was Goldman.
Yeah, Stan Goldman. He was a fabulous Young at Heart performer. And I mean, if people want to check out Stan's work, Stan is no longer with us. He passed, I think, about 10 years ago. But he was in the movie, and if you get to see the Young at Heart movie, he's the one who does "I Feel Good" along with Dora Morrow, and it's really something to behold. I mean, it's wonderful. And then he also sings the song "Golden Years" by David Bowie, and if you go on our website and you put in "Hey Young at Heart Chorus," he did a version of "Hey Ya" at Mount Holyoke College for the Mount Holyoke College students that just was enormously well received, and it's really fun to look at. So that, I mean, sorry to be so specific there, but he was absolutely fantastic.
There was something about him. I mean, everybody in Long Meadow knew him because he sang and whistled wherever he went once he got involved in Young at Heart. And I remember being in Big Y one day running to get stuff, and I heard this whistling, and it was a song. I don't remember what the song was, but it wasn't like an old pop standard. It was something kind of new, and I rounded the corner, and it was Stan, and just the smiling, happy man who had been so dour for such a long time. So I know that Young at Heart had a real big impact on him.
Yeah, I didn't know the dour Stan. I know that he came in and thought of himself as a classical music aficionado and didn't quite know why he was doing what he was doing with us, but he did change his tune, so to speak, really quickly, and became a really beloved member of the group.
Yeah, we got to take a very quick break here to acknowledge our underwriters. But before we do, if people want to learn more about Young at Heart Chorus, or watch the documentary, or hear the new album that just came out, or just make a donation, how do they find out more?
They just go to our website, youngatheartchorus.com. It's youngatheartchorus.com. And you'll find everything you'll want to know at that website.
Okay, we're talking with Bob Cilman, who is the founder and the director of Young at Heart Chorus, world-renowned, puts Northampton and surrounding communities, including Westfield, on the map. You're listening to Artsbeat on Westfield Community Programming Channel 15 or 89.5 FM WSKB. If you missed a part of today's program, or you want to catch one of our previous Friday editions, you can go to WSKB Community Radio's YouTube channel and watch all of our programming because it's posted there. I'm Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer, and we'll be right back.
Support for community radio on WSKB provided by Westfield Electroplating. Employing over 140 skilled platers, painters, and technicians, Westfield Electroplating was founded in 1946 and was the first company in the country to achieve National Aerospace and Defense Contractor Program accreditation, proudly maintaining that status for over a decade. Westfield Electroplating provides over 50 quality finishes to meet your corrosion, cosmetic, or performance needs. On the web at www.westfieldplating.com or 413-568-3716. Westfield Electroplating, putting the finishing touches on technology.
Underwriting for WSKB's community radio programming is brought to you in part by R. Levesque Associates. They are offering landscape architecture, civil engineering, environmental permitting, and land surveying. RLA is a second-generation company devoted to excellence in the planning and design of outdoor spaces. On the web at rlaland.com or at 40 School Street in Westfield.
This is Ken Stomsky from Ken's Den on WCPC 15 and 89.5 FM, Tuesdays, 8 to 10.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM, WSKB, Westfield.
Welcome back to Artsbeat, everyone. I'm Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer, and we're chatting with Bob Cilman from the Young at Heart Chorus. Bob, how did you get some of those VIPs and celebrities to be a part of the launch for your recent album?
Well, it wasn't just one thing, but we did work with the publicity team that did work on the film back in 2008. They used to be at Fox Searchlight, and now they're independent, and they got a good lion's share of them. But Larry David came through a friend of a friend, or a brother of a friend, I should say, and Jim James from my Morning Jacket came from a musician friend, actually one of our band members who knew somebody, that kind of thing. And John Berman from CNN has been kind of on the Young at Heart story for a long time now. So he really he did an amazing job for us. I mean, he actually sings in a song with us. He's quite good.
Yeah, I was surprised that he got involved the way he did. I mean, many media people, myself included, become fans of a particular organization and might occasionally do a fundraiser or MC something. But he's got this incredible enthusiasm for Young at Heart.
I know. We are so lucky to have his attention the way we do. And you know, he didn't. None of them. That was the great thing about all the, I guess, celebrities who got involved. None of them did it as a throwaway thing. They all did really interesting things. You know, like Larry David and Steve Buscemi and David Byrne and Edie Falco all did really wonderful sort of testimonials, which I don't warmed my heart, I'll tell you.
It was great to see. Young at Heart collaborates with other unlikely groups to do music. Some of those been quite rewarding, I would assume, for you, and also made Young at Heart more of an important cultural institution in the area, because you brought the arts outside of the theater.
Right.
Can you describe one or two of those programs?
Well, we do have our Prison Vision project. If people saw the film, they know that we went in and performed at the prison, and it's really one of the most emotional scenes in the movie. But we kind of said that once we stopped touring, because we toured for a long time after that film, that we wanted to go back and not sing for the incarcerated, but sing with them. And so we created a program where we went in once a week to both the men's prison in Hampshire County and the Chicopee Women's Prison, and formed a singing group in each place. And it was fantastic. And some of those people, once they got out, would join us for shows at the Academy of Music. At the Hampshire County, even if you were just a minimum, they would let them perform at the Academy. And they've been really moving performances, and there's a little bit of that in the show that we just did that's depicted, and it's been very rewarding. And the other things that we do are these mashups with children's choruses, and probably our closest relationship is with the Chicago Children's Choir, which is just a phenomenal choir out of Chicago.
How, with the pandemic in place, since you can't rehearse in person or perform before an audience, what kind of activities do you have going on this year?
Well, we just finished the October 3rd show. We just released a CD, and now we're about to do a holiday show. You know, I've never really embraced the idea of a holiday show, but last year we were invited by the Springfield Symphony Orchestra to be a guest at their holiday show, and it turned out to be so so rewarding and so fun. I mean, we really had it. It was well received there in Springfield. I mean, they do an amazing job. They got 2,000 people to show up, and so now we figured maybe we'll do some of those songs in a Zoom holiday show that we're going to be doing on December 12th.
And your Zoom show will be anybody will be able to Zoom in,
Anybody.
so to speak.
Free to everyone.
What kind of holiday music will this be? The traditional songs as reinterpreted by Young at Heart, or have you gotten some offbeat music which you're known for as part of the repertoire?
Well, I would say it's more offbeat. We do the song "Must Be Santa," which Bob Dylan did, and a group called Brave Combo. We do Tom Lear's "Hanukkah in Santa Monica," fantastic song. We do the Pretenders' 2,000 Miles, and John Lennon's, John and Yoko's Happy Christmas, War is Over. So not the traditional Silent Night.
Exactly. Do you think that post-pandemic you'll be able to collaborate with the orchestra again.
Oh, I hope so. That was a really successful experience. Not only down in Springfield, but we had them up in Northampton, an ensemble of 8 people, and it was beautiful. And they actually went a Ray Charles song, "Drown in My Own Tears," backed by the ensemble from Springfield Symphony, and it was just gorgeous.
That's fabulous. How many singers are in the Young at Heart at any given time?
We average 25, and right now we're right there. We're at 25.
And I know that there's no age limit to how long they can sing, but what's the minimum age they have to be to audition?
75.
75. And how
75.
often?
And it used to be when we started 55. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. How often do you hold auditions?
Well, whenever anybody wants to come, they can just sort of show up. Now it's a little different on Zoom, and Zoom does allow us the possibility of having people show up to our rehearsals anywhere in the world. So, we haven't taken that much advantage of that, but it is something that we've had requests for, and I'm trying to figure out how to make that work.
That, especially if they have that, you say that there's like some other kind of like programs. You've mentioned one in New Zealand and one in Japan. Eventually could be a global thing through Zoom.
Yeah. I think we will try to do that for some of the songs that we're doing.
Well, Bob, we're just about out of time. So remind people about a couple of the upcoming holiday concert and where they can get information about Young at Heart Chorus. And I should probably say Young at Heart is a not-for-profit, so people can donate or support you with contributions through your website.
That's very true, and I thank you for mentioning that. The show we did on October 3rd was a big fundraiser to replace the 2 live shows that we do each year, and we set a goal of 100,000, and we're right now inching towards 90,000. So we figure we'll get over it with the holiday show, but if people want to donate, just go to youngatheartchorus.com, and you can find it there, and we will start having information about the holiday show there. You can see the last show we did on October 3rd. You can check out the CD, and I really appreciate your giving us.
Yeah, and Bob, one question. The documentary that's world famous, can people find that online?
It used to be on Netflix. I know that you can get it, from Amazon or one of those places. But if you go to Amazon, it may be if you're like an Amazon Prime member or one of those things, it may be like a $2.99 charge or something like that to watch at one time.
Well, it's well worth it. It's a great documentary. And even though it's old, it's still young at heart because it really shows all of the great people that are involved. And I hope most of the people that are in it back then are still around.
Unfortunately, there's about 4 people who were in that film that are still with us. That's how it changes. But an interesting thing to do would be to watch that film and then watch what they just put together October 3rd. That's an interesting double feature, I think.
Well, Bob, thanks for joining us. We've been chatting with Bob Cilman from the Young at Heart Chorus. We are going to acknowledge the underwriters that make Artsbeat possible, and both on Westfield Community Programming Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB. When we come back, we'll be chatting with Glenn Siegel from the Magic Triangle Jazz Series, so don't go away.
Underwriting is brought to you by Boise Cascade Distribution, providing products and services needed for building material dealers, home improvement centers, and industrial customers. They offer everything from engineered wood and plywood to Drex decking and railing, James Hardie siding, and Advantech subfloor. Located at 33 Fowler Street Extension in Westfield and on the web at bc.com, they are committed to providing quality products, great service, convenience, and value.
Underwriting support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by the Greater Westfield Chamber of Commerce, the voice of business for the Greater Westfield communities. Informing, educating, advocating, the Chamber provides opportunities for members to make meaningful connections on local, regional, and state levels. For more information on the Chamber's many events, workshops, and programs, as well as the benefits of membership, visit westfieldbiz.org. The Chamber focuses on the most important economy, yours.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Comcast and Xfinity.com, offering Xfinity TV, Internet, home phone, and home security services. Information on all that Xfinity has to offer in the Westfield area is available online at Xfinity.com.
Hi, this is Harry Rock, host of Rock on Westfield every fourth Wednesday at 8 a.m. Tune in for my view of this place I call home.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to Artsbeat, everyone. I'm Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer today. And our next guest is Glenn Siegel from the Magic Triangle Jazz Series, which has been an integral part of the Valley's jazz scene for as long as I can remember. I first met Glenn when I was working at WFCR, and he was involved at WFCR and also the UMass College station WMUA. And WFCR at that time was one of the few area radio stations to have a jazz program. It was called Jazz a la Mode. It's continued over the years with its host Tom Reaney, and it's now part of New England Public Media. And one of the things our valley is so well regarded for is the jazz programs that are available in area theaters and venues, large and small. So, Glenn, welcome to Artsbeat.
Thank you, Mark. It's a pleasure to be here.
God, we haven't seen each other in person probably for 20 years, and from the days of Hampshire House at UMass.
Yes, exactly. Those are very fond memories for me, working with people who are still at the radio station. Of course, it's in Springfield now, but I have very fond memories of meeting you and many, many other people who are integral to the art scene in both classical music and jazz, as well as news, of course. But it remains a vital part of our cultural landscape, of course.
And it was kind of trial by fire because although the radio programming that we all got to do together, which was really quite great and innovative at the time, the situation in which we worked, I mean, when I think of what Hampshire House was like with the leaking roofs and the faucets that didn't work and the electric power that came on and off, it was like being in kind of like I can't describe how rudimentary those situations were compared to what we all work with today.
It's true. I know more than once I had the experience of people who came in to help with on-air fund drives. When they finally saw the place, there was a real disconnect because, of course, the product that WFCR put out was so professional, and yet the environment was so lacking. People were constantly surprised that we were able to do so much with so little.
I know. The idea that I walk into a radio TV studio now and don't have to climb over boxes of T-shirts and wires all over the floor and not being able to walk into certain areas because there was water on the floor from a rainstorm that had happened the day before. It seems like we've come a million miles ahead over the last 25 years.
Certainly we have, yeah. I mean, NEPR's or NEPM's studios in Springfield are quite a step up from Hampshire House, which is still being used by university entities.
I know.
I might add.
I know. One of the things that I discovered at the time I was there and you were working there was that jazz really existed in the Pioneer Valley and in Western Massachusetts on not only the large stages like the Fine Arts Center or perhaps a guest presentation at Springfield Symphony Hall, but also in smaller clubs and venues, and that there were a lot of local groups that were performing. One of the things you've done with your career has been to nurture and develop jazz performances, not only in small venues and in large venues, but in unlikely places. How did you get an interest in this?
Well, I grew up very connected to music. You know, I grew up in New York City, and we had well-functioning band programs, and so I was smitten with music from an early age. I didn't really come to jazz until just after my college career, and it was sort of by osmosis and through friends who had already developed an interest in the music. And I just found it so life-affirming, so vibrant, so unpredictable. I really took to it, and at a certain point in my life, in my 20s, realized that whatever else I did with my life, I wanted to be close to the music, and so I structured my career around doing just that, being close to the music.
Now, you were the person that behind Magic Triangle Jazz Series, but also Pioneer Valley Jazz Shares. Can you tell me a little bit about both of them?
Yeah, so Magic Triangle Jazz Series began actually as a collaboration between WMUA, which is the student and community radio station at UMass Amherst, and the Fine Arts Center, under the leadership of the late Dr. Fred Phillis, who was the director of the Fine Arts Center. He embraced the idea with open arms and provided some funding, and we began producing concerts in a now defunct space, which is the Hampden Theater, which was in the southwest residential area of campus, and a wonderful setting for jazz and other small-scale productions. A wonderful black box theater that was run by Bob Antill. And it produced initially 3 concerts per year. Now it's been 6 concerts per year. And the sort of goal behind that was to present artists whose critical reputations exceeded their place in the public eye. So not the Wynton Marsalises of the world, or the Wayne Shorters or Sonny Rollins of the world, but the vast array of talented artists who don't have quite the reputation of those masters. And that continues to today. I mean, we're still producing the Magic Triangle series 32 years later. Pioneer Valley Jazz Shares started 9 years ago in 2012. And that's a project that's based in the community throughout Western Massachusetts. And we take as our organizing principle the CSA, or farm share model. So before the season starts, which is typically in September, we ask people to join the organization as shareholders, and people can buy shares and half shares, and that entitles them to a certain number of admissions to the concerts that we produce. And we produce those concerts in Franklin County, Hampshire County, and in Hampden County. And we do 10 to 14 concerts a year in multiple venues. The Community Music School in Springfield, Wisteria Hearst Museum in Holyoke, the Parlor Room and Northampton Arts Trust, Hawks and Reed, the Shea Theater, and so on. So we're moving around, and the programming is somewhat similar to Magic Triangle. Again, world-class performers from throughout the world who are not household names, but very accomplished artists. So Jazz Shares is in the midst of our 9th season, and together those two programs add to the jazz ecology of the Valley.
Is it possible for a jazz musician now to actually live and work in Western Massachusetts year-round?
Yes, I mean, the state of the music in general isn't great, and it wasn't great before the pandemic, and it's certainly gotten worse since. So there aren't that many jazz artists who can make a middle-class living solely through performance and recording. Most of the artists that I work with are teaching artists or have some other day gig or some other situation that allows them to do their art. Having said that, there are a good number of performance opportunities in Western Mass, and certainly, in larger cities in the U.S. Of course, the pandemic has upended the equation big time, and a lot of work is in Europe and outside of North America or outside of the U.S. And that has, of course, dried up with the pandemic and inability to travel and have live performances. But musicians are resourceful, especially improvising musicians are resourceful, if nothing else, and starting to, figure out other ways to get their music before the public. But the Valley has a long history of supporting jazz music and a long history of people who made the Valley their home, who are internationally known artists.
What are some of the venues over the last maybe 5 to 10 years that have cropped up that weren't around before that really are good places to go hear music?
Mm-hmm. Hawks and Reed in Greenfield, Mass. The space was there. It used to be called the Arts Block, but the Goldshear family took over maybe 7 or 8 years ago, and it really has reinvigorated the space. And there are multiple performance venues within the building, which is on Main Street in Greenfield. Gateway City Arts in Holyoke is a relatively new space, and Vitek Kruta and Lori Devine, who co-run that space, have sunk in a lot of money and effort to rehab that space, and we've done concerts there, and it's a beautiful space to hear music. And again, there are multiple performance spaces in that venue, which is on Race Street in Holyoke. The Community Music School of Springfield is not a new space per se, but one of my favorite spaces to produce in, and that's on State Street in downtown Springfield.
And I think that was an old bank building, right?
Exactly, yeah. So it's a stunning building. And one of the nice things about jazz shares and moving around the way we do from venue to venue is that it gives our audience an opportunity to visit performing spaces that they haven't been to before. And the reaction to people when they first walk into that building is usually a jaw drop. It's such a stunning building. There's a beautiful mural on the wall, it's floor-to-ceiling mural from the 1930s. It's clear that it's a bank building, but it's been refurbished with great sound. So that's one of my favorites. And Wisteria Hearst on Cabot Street in Holyoke is also a favorite. The music room in that building is wonderful, seats about 80 to 100 people, and it's a wonderful place to hear music. Again, not a new space per se, but new to a lot of our audience.
How can people in the area that are interested in jazz learn more about what's going on? Does Magic Triangle have a website or Pioneer Valley Jazz Shares?
Yeah, there are websites. So the Magic Triangle series is part of the UMass Fine Arts Center programming. So all that information is available online at fineartscenter.com. And of course, we've been getting a lot of use out of that website as we've gone virtual this semester. So a lot of the programming itself is also online, but you can get information about Magic Triangle at fineartscenter.com. And for Pioneer Valley Jazz Shares, our website is jazzshares.org. And we've been able to do a few live shows outdoors for season 9. And now we're, as the weather turns, we'll be moving indoors. So we'll be going virtual too, at least until spring.
Yeah, I mean, it seems that we've got a long ways to go before we'll be having a lot of live performance again. At least with jazz and with small ensembles, outdoor performing has been, an option the last couple of months.
Yeah, we just did a wonderful concert at the Institute for the Musical Arts. And that's another venue that we use. That's a wonderful space in Goshen, Massachusetts, run by June Millington and Ann Hackler. And we typically have used their barn, which is a fully equipped studio and performance venue. And they're sitting on 25 beautiful acres of land. So a couple of Sundays ago, we had Charlie Colhase's saxophone support group, a group of 6 saxophonists performing outdoors on the land at the Institute for the Musical Arts. And that was a beautiful event, really magical with, trees all around of various colors and totally unamplified saxophones from soprano to baritone. So that was a really wonderful event. Of course, with fall and winter bearing down on us, that's probably the last live outdoor show we'll do for a while.
That's right. Glenn, we're going to take a break to acknowledge the underwriters that make Artsbeat possible here, both on Westfield Community Programming Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB. We'll be back more with Glenn Siegel after these underwriting announcements. I'm Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer, and this is Artsbeat.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Bay State Dental. Comprehensive dentistry at 14 convenient locations in Springfield, Chicopee, Longmeadow, West Springfield, Belchertown, East Longmeadow, Ludlow, Northampton, Greenfield, and Wilbraham, as well as 29 Broad Street in Westfield. Bay State Dental makes it a priority to help you achieve and maintain the healthy smile you deserve. On the web at baystatedental.com.
Support for the community programming of WSKB is provided by Westfield Bank. For more than 160 years, Westfield Bank has been an important community presence and commercial leader in the Pioneer Valley, with convenient full banking services in Westfield, West Springfield, East Longmeadow, Agawam, Feeding Hills, Springfield, Southwick, as well as Enfield and Granby, Connecticut. Visit us on the web at westfieldbank.org.
Hi, it's Bob Plass, and I have Wow, It's Tuesday, every Tuesday, 6 to 8. Wow, it's Tuesday.
Community Radio.
89.5 WSKB.
I did it!
Live from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy, this is WCPC Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB Westfield.
Welcome back to Artsbeat, everyone. I'm Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. We're broadcasting from Studio 120 at Westfield Technical Academy. And our guest this half hour is Glenn Siegel from both the Magic Triangle Jazz Series and Pioneer Valley Jazz Shares. I guess, Glenn, it's safe to say that you are the preeminent jazz impresario here in the 413 in terms of bringing jazz to a variety of venues.
Well, that's very kind of you to say. Friends joke that I'm the Saul Hurok of Western Massachusetts jazz. But that's overstating it a bit, I think. And there's other jazz activity. Paul Arslanian and the Green Street Trio have a great tradition of Tuesday night concerts with guest artists that has been going on for many years. And of course, the Northampton Jazz Festival is a somewhat younger entry, and they've been doing great work over the last few years as well. So there's a lot of activity in Western Mass, jazz-wise for sure. But it's an honor to have been a part of that.
Where can people in general find out about jazz and music? I mean, I know that in the media, space is limited for club listings and music listings. Are there any websites or calendars that you recommend to people that are interested in getting an overview of what's going on?
Yeah, the Hartford Jazz Society, which obviously is a little to the south but has a pretty wide range, they have a jazz calendar that is kept up to date, and they include things that are happening in the Valley. And the Hartford Jazz Society's website is available. I think it's hartfordjazzsociety.org, if I'm not mistaken. And then the university's Fine Arts Center has an organization called Valley Jazz Network, which does some educational programs throughout the year, and they have a calendar that lists some jazz activity also. So those are the two main ones that I'd recommend.
Yeah, I mean, I've yet to find a comprehensive arts calendar anywhere that covers all the genres, and so I'm always looking for more places to find information. With all the jazz and stuff that you've done over the years, do you play an instrument and do you perform?
I do not. Growing up in Queens, New York, I played baritone horn in junior high school, in concert band settings. And the music was very important to me at that time. But since then, I haven't played an instrument. I play the record player, I tell people. So I have done jazz radio at WMUA, and for a time I was a substitute host on Jazz a la Mode. So I come to it as a listener and a fan, but not as a performer.
But you've become an administrator of it and a programmer of it. In terms of programming, where do you find the new ensembles and the new musicians?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Well, through my listening, through just coming across new music that's recorded. I also usually, whenever I'm hosting musicians, producing concerts, I'm always anxious to hear who they're listening to, younger players that I should know about. So I'm picking the brains of more veteran players. And I read pretty consistently, jazz magazines, and then I have a lot of friends who are deep into the music as well, and so we're constantly trading names and talking. So those are the main ways that I keep my ear to the ground. But of course, there's so many great players. I'm constantly learning new names, and especially with younger players who are just graduating and coming onto the scene. Yeah. It's hard to keep track of everyone. But I feel like I have a pretty good pulse on who's out there and who's doing what.
Are there other genres of music that you like and appreciate that give you a break from jazz?
Well, I like all kinds of music. For a number of years at WMUA, I did a world music show, so music from throughout Pan-Africa. So I, have a good amount of non-Western music in my own personal collection, which is pretty substantial. I feel a very strong affinity to the blues, and have blues in my collection as well. I'm certainly not as well versed in music from Africa and Asia and Latin America as I am with jazz, but I certainly love it and respond to it. And I like some new classical, contemporary music as well. So I'm just I love the world of sound. I think of all the senses, that's the sense that I'm most responsive to, I would say.
And one last question here. What makes the 413 or Western Massachusetts such a magnet for music in general and jazz in particular?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, it certainly is true that jazz has a long history here. Part of it is connected to UMass and the other colleges. Giants of the music like Yusef Lateef and Archie Shepp and Max Roach and Reggie Workman and Roland Wiggins all, were connected to various colleges. And I think that has brought students who were interested in the music to our area and attracted others to the area. I would add Billy Taylor to that list as well, of course. But I think also, the Valley's proximity to New York and Boston is a factor. In fact, there's a young tenor player and flute player, Anna Weber, who was in New York for many years, who just bought a home in Greenfield. So, the quality of life here and the cost of living make it attractive place, and the fact that it's so culturally rich also, attracts artists to the area. So, but as to how it first got started and why Amherst or why the Valley and not some other places, the Worcester area, of course there are great artists there too, I'm sure. But I think the colleges played a really pivotal anchor role in establishing jazz as a viable art form in the Valley.
And I would assume that if you talk to the economic leaders in Northampton, for example, or Amherst, the amount of jazz programming and its economic impact has really been a positive thing throughout the Western Mass.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, when people come to my concerts, they're usually coming from a restaurant to the venue or stopping by for a drink post-concert. So there's certainly spin-off, and people come from, wide geographic area to come to the Valley for concerts and sometimes staying overnight in the process.
Glenn Siegel, thank you so much for joining us. We've been chatting with Glenn Siegel, so much involved in the Magic Triangle Jazz Series and the Pioneer Valley Jazz Shares and other opportunities here from jazz and music in Western Massachusetts. And that wraps up another edition of Artsbeat here on Westfield Community Programming Channel 15 and 89.5 FM WSKB. We're here every Friday at 8 a.m. If you've missed one of our programs, find us at the WSKB Community Radio YouTube channel. I'm Mark Auerbach. Peter Coles is our chief engineer. We'll see you next week.
Why do stage-struck maidens clamor to be acting in the drama? We've heard say you are gay night and day. Fuck away. We drink water from a dipper. You drink champagne from a slipper. Though it seems cruel to bust all your dreams, still I must. Here's the truth I tell you. Life upon the wicked stage ain't ever what a girl supposes. Stage door Johnny's orange raging over you with gems and roses. When you let a baller hold your hand, which means an extra beer or sandwich, everybody whispers ain't her life a whirl. Oh, you're warned against a ruin in your reputation. I have played around the one-night trade around a great big nation. Wild old men who gave you jewels and sables only live in Aesop's fables. Life upon the wicked stage ain't nothing for a girl. Don't we listen to you moan and grieve? You must pardon us if we do not believe you. There is no doubt you're crazy about your awful state. I admit it's fun to smear my face with paint, causing everyone to think I'm what I ain't. And I like to play a Demi-Mondi role with soul. Ask the hero, does he like the way I lure when I play a hussy or a paramour? Yet when once the curtain's down, my life is pure, and how I dread it. Gentlemen would talk with reason, I would cancel all next season. Life upon the wicked stage ain't nothing for a girl.